You're listening to a CNA podcast. Personality hires. Have you heard of this term? Neither have I until this episode. But apparently it's something that Gen Zs are talking about. So I'm here to try and understand it. Welcome back to the Work It podcast with me, Tiffany. Yes, it's just me today because we have our columnist from CNA Today, Kelvin Kao, in the studio as our co-host. Welcome back, Kelvin.
Hello, Tiffany. How are you?
How are you? Well, the last time we spoke was about an article that you wrote on workplace romances. And today we're talking about another article about personality hires. Now, straight off the bat, what are personality hires? Honestly, it sounded like they're mascots.
When I was first introduced to the term, it felt like a very loaded term. Like, why would anyone be hired on account of just their personality, right? But
Yeah.
I think increasingly because of the value that Gen Zs place on workplace culture, there have been ones that are hired with strong consideration for what they bring to the table, aside for their job roles specifically, like essentially their personality, the humor, the camaraderie they can bring to the team. And it's been an interesting phenomenon to observe in culture as well.
So what exactly do these personality hires do? What is that personality they bring to the table? Like, can you give us some examples?
Yeah, my understanding is that there is still a job function to fulfill.
Okay.
Right?
So they're not here just to
they're not
juggle
just,
and then
yes.
they clock off work just doing that.
I think in most cases, they are still there to fulfill like HR or client servicing, project management or whatever it might be, right?
Okay.
But it's just a matter of like how much weightage is being placed on being able to achieve that role functionally, but also bringing something else to the table, being a fun hang, if I may put it that way.
A fun hang. Okay. When I was researching about this topic, several TikTok or Instagram reels, they will explain what some of these personality hires do. And to be honest, I don't know whether is it a satire, is it a comedy skit, or is this real life? Because they describe themselves as fun, vibrant, vibe setters. They will say, oh, I'm here to lighten your mood on Monday mornings, not just your workload, right? They will remember birthdays. They are the ones who will bring your office snacks. I think there was one clip that I saw. This group of people will say, we need to get the CEO to give us a longer deadline. But they didn't know how to ask. And this personality hire, again, in a very skit fashion, came in and said, oh, what's so difficult about that? And then she calls the CEO and just asks for an extension and that's given.
It was done.
Yeah. I couldn't tell whether that was like for real or is this them just taking a mickey out of it?
My understanding of it, speaking with my staff and younger members of the team, is that yes, there's a bit of satire to it in that it's not the entirety of their role. But for the TikToks, that's the role they have embraced or the kind of persona they've taken on.
Have you spoken to companies or even in your company, have you met someone who is like a personality hire and what is their job like?
Right, from anecdotal observation and again in conversations with friends in the industry, right? They tend to be more HR-centered, I would say, by and large.
Okay.
Or in a project management role, meaning they have to deal with multiple teams or different parties within a company. These companies tend to be larger in scale as well. So they can afford this sort of,
headcount,
for
right?
me, maybe perhaps seemingly frivolous hire. And you can get hints of it in their title sometimes. Again, I want to be careful with this, but if it sounds something like Chief People Officer, for example.
Not saying that the chief people officers in companies don't do the real work, but
Head of Fun. I've heard variations of things like that. Yes, they have a job role, usually centered around like HR, team building, which is important. But positioned slightly differently, I think, from your traditional HR managers, directors.
Yeah. Bigger companies tend to value these sort of hires because maybe they bring something to help gel so many different teams together. With SMEs, it's a bit harder.
Yes, you just need the person to be extremely proficient at their job. Now, if they bring anything else to the table in terms of their personality, their fun vibes, that's a bonus, but probably not a requirement.
If this person really is hired to lubricate the conversations between different departments, what are kind of pitfalls you think could actually happen?
I think it's always hard for them to justify their presence, right? Because what they bring is almost ephemeral. The reality is that teams will start to wonder, is this person really here to strengthen the team in terms of the actual work done or to just make us feel good about the work being done without doing any actual work? I know you're here for the good vibes, but we are here to do our jobs.
Yeah.
And if you're not helping us in that particular regard, are you really helping us?
Yeah.
That's a very practical consideration, I think.
And I guess some people might say that we're just here to work.
Yep.
We're not here to have fun. And
Yes.
nothing is personal. I don't really need to come here for the vibes. As long as it's not a toxic work environment, why do I need to come here for fun?
Exactly. With COVID and remote working arrangements, are you going to just appear on Zoom and crack a few jokes?
Yeah.
And again, if you bring something very pragmatic to the table in terms of table setting conversations, mending fences and stuff like that, I'm sure that makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, on the sheer definition of a personality hire, that seems to be a stretch.
So far, what we are saying is that it's very rare for someone to be hired just to bring the vibes or bring the
Right.
fun. They likely would have some other skills that they can bring to the table, but maybe more than 50% is the personality side of the house. But I think with the skills, they still need to be able to come up to basic
Yes.
competency level. And
Yeah.
if they cannot perform, then it reduces performance on the whole. In fact, I think it's actually detrimental to the person who was hired for this job.
Right.
Because they themselves will feel, oh, actually, I'm never going to be as good as my peers. I might not even be considered for promotion.
Right. Part of what I've articulated in my piece is the realities of working in any corporate environment is that, yes, you're judged for your work, but also how you work. Now, how you work might be process, meaning you're organized with your briefs and tidy and all that. But also, incidentally, it would be how you relate to the others around you.
Yeah.
Are you a team player? And like it or not, that plays a part. It's part of your evaluation down the line, for sure.
Yeah, I think all of us, when we look at the KPIs that our bosses have set for us, towards the end of the form, you
Teamwork.
have to put, teamwork, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to justify that you are a team player. These are the sort of softer skills. But again, for the average worker, that's very deprioritized. You know that, just where it's placed on the form, you get an idea that it's the afterthought. It's the nice to have, the icing on the cake. But when somebody comes in and it looks like as if this icing is no longer the icing, this part is the cake.
Exactly.
Then it creates some form of sometimes resentment as well.
If weightage is distributed unevenly, that doesn't seem very fair because that wasn't quite in the job description.
Yeah.
And you're stretching the definition of team player in that regard.
Do you think that they also, because personality hires, they tend to come across as more charismatic, more well-liked as well? Do you think that team managers or bosses might go a little bit easier on them because they tell a joke and then they all of a sudden make everything less tense?
Yes, I think we are all human, right? Even in my capacity as the boss and owner of the company, work gets tense, you have difficult conversations, and someone that can bring some levity to the environment is always welcome. Now, we still want to judge the person based on their overall proficiency. So yes, they will probably score well in teamwork, but I still need to look at exactly what their job function requires and whether they are fulfilling their job function to be fair to the other team members. So yes, it is a consideration, but it cannot form the entirety or even the majority of the consideration, in my opinion.
Let's say you are looking at two candidates and both of them are equally competent. Would you tend to lean on the side of somebody who brings more personality to the table?
I'm going to have to say yes, because partly it's the nature of our work, extremely collaborative. It requires an environment where people are invited to contribute their ideas and new ways of working and stuff like that. Of course, in any candidate that you are evaluating, you want the best of everything. You want someone that can work really well, which sometimes you can't quite tell through the interview. But in the interview, you have a pretty good sense of the personality. So if you kind of evaluate experience and expertise and they seem about the same, I would certainly lean on the person that I can vibe with a little more.
But would you tell them that I would like you to bring this to the table and you will be judged according to that?
Two parts to the answer. Yes, I will tell them. Part of why you have been hired on board is because, I think you're a good fit within the team. So that's how I'll put it in terms of the personality. I'm not sure whether it's fair to evaluate them from an appraisal standpoint based on that. There are many components to an appraisal. If there are, say, 8 components, this has to be just one out of the 8. It cannot form like half of the, so to speak, KPIs.
What do personality hires have to teach us about the way we work? What can we learn from them?
I think, again, it's hard for me to represent Gen Zs, right? But I think as a whole, they want purpose and meaning in their workplace. And part of finding that purpose is building a genuine relationships. I think perhaps for older ones, I'll put myself squarely in that category. We are more pragmatic in nature in that we are here to do a job and then we go back to our families, and that is it.
Work-life balance.
We segregate it, but for the younger ones, they want that, sense of belonging, purpose, camaraderie in the workplace. And so this matters, and personality hires bring that sort of bonding element to the entire team, which is valuable. In theory, it should bring better retention, overall happiness within the team.
Yes, I think sometimes personality hires, they might also be like somebody who go, oh, are you very stressed? If you're very stressed, is there something I can take off your plate? Because they're likely empaths. So they care about people's feelings as well. They may not be able to do much if they take something off your plate, but just the act of asking, just the act of caring really helps the team to feel, okay, this person is not here just to make me feel good, but this person is trying to help.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think they can be a great avenue of on-the-ground information. I try and connect with my team and check in on them. But the reality is they will share up to a point, right? So what personality hires can bring to the table is really getting a sensing of what's on the ground in terms of mental health, happiness, even things like workload imbalance. Much as you can look at everything on a spreadsheet or even through your timesheets and stuff like that, perhaps the intensity and capacity for different individuals might vary. And so the personality hire can keep a lookout for that. You still have to empower them because they can't simply just reallocate stuff, which is why I mentioned at the start, they tend to be project managers or HR where they have some agency over the outcome, but they need some support from the top level really to make that work.
Yeah, and I think this is all very much clearer to me because I think before we started this recording, I was telling you, I really don't believe in this. I don't understand why it's a thing.
Yes.
Maybe the name itself sounds...
It's such a loaded term,
and it's so negative, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like saying that you are hired for your personality. That's why you are personality hire.
Yeah.
But it's not just that. But it's saying that like you can be a project manager, but your personality is the one that shines through. And how can you use your personality to the advantage? Lastly, before we leave, I'm going to put you on the spot, right? I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. Okay, as a boss, who would you keep? Person A, who is a ball of sunshine and is very great for team morale, but isn't skilled at all and not very conscientious with the work. Okay, then you have person B, excellent worker, efficiency through the roof, helps you to bring the sales and everything, but has gotten complaints from pretty much every member of the team. Who would you keep?
I'm going to have to go with the perceived personality hire.
You would fire the personality hire.
Yeah, this makes it sound like I don't value culture. But again, culture comprises, yes, good vibes, good energy, humor, camaraderie. But ultimately, it's also the work output, the way we work. And that really matters. In a previous workplace, we had someone, textbook definition of personality hire in that he brought a great
game
energy,
and talk a good game.
Talk a good game, and honestly well liked by the team. It wasn't just a matter of he wayang in front of the bosses or anything like that. It was really genuinely a great person to hang out with, great lunch companion. But the work part was incredibly frustrating when he doesn't perform at his function and somebody else has to cover.
Correct. Exactly.
And it affects deadlines. So it creates a cloud of unhappiness around it also. It offsets some of the good vibes that he brings to the table. Whereas someone that is proficient at their job, you can kind of contain them. I had someone in the team that I hired previously, a very no-nonsense, very, very strict creative. I always remember this particular brainstorming session where the French term haute couture, I made a joke about it being pronounced as horticulture, right? Just a random thing. And then she corrected me, which is fine. And I said, oh, I meant it as a joke. And then she just straight up in front of everyone, we don't have time for that. You know, so that's gives you an inkling of the kind of person that she was.
I see.
But I actually really respected that. She keeps us going. Yes, we receive a couple of complaints. Ultimately, I think the complaints were not centered around her job proficiency, but she was very, very curt.
Yeah.
She was very rude.
Yeah.
So that can quite easily, in my opinion, be managed by explaining the context of like her behavior and maybe drawing certain boundaries. But because of the quality of the work, it doesn't create that cloud of bad vibes.
Yeah, that's the thing that we all have to learn, which is at work, you may not necessarily like the colleague that you're working with, but if you can respect the colleague, that takes you further than if you like the person but cannot respect this person.
Exactly.
Right.
I love how this show, Parks and Recreation, puts it. We are workplace proximity associates.
Yeah.
Meaning we're working close to each other, but ultimately it's about work.
I think today I definitely learned a lot about personality hires, reframing the way I see how they work, who they are. Whoever's interested to find out more about this, Kelvin's article is coming this week. Stay tuned for it. It will be on CNA Today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany.
And if you have any questions or even any topic that you would like us to talk about, we are at CNA Podcasts at mediacorp.com.sg. Write into us. We are also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Me Listen, or YouTube. The team behind this podcast is Ho Pei Ning, Junaini Johari, Joanne Chan, Saya Win, Alison Jenner, Nat Fetalvero, and Shaza Dalila. I'm Tiffany. Goodbye for now.